The strange dreams began on a Tuesday. All across Earth, people woke up sweating, hearts racing, with the same feeling of someone crying for help. Jun sat up in his bed, gasping for air. It was the third night in a row he'd had the nightmare. In it, crystal beings reached out their hands, their world cracking beneath them. He could still hear their silent screams as he splashed cold water on his face. "You too?" his roommate Hana asked, appearing in the bathroom doorway with dark circles under her eyes. "I can't sleep anymore. It feels like someone is calling me." Similar scenes played out across the planet. Billions of humans experienced the same disturbing dreams and unexplained anxiety. Children drew pictures of crystal people reaching toward the stars. Poets wrote about distant worlds breaking apart. Musicians composed songs filled with strange alien harmonies they claimed came to them in their sleep. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, advanced civilizations received the distress signal with perfect clarity. The Zorinthians, with their hive mind, consciousness, intercepted the message and immediately began calculating response costs. The equation was simple. The resources required to mount a rescue mission to the distant Varian system exceeded the potential benefits by 32.7%. Unfortunate but inefficient, the Zorinthian high mind concluded, filing the distress call away. The mech lords of Andromeda analyzed the signal through their quantum processors and determined a 78.3% probability that responding would expose them to the same stellar catastrophe affecting the Varians. They initiated no rescue protocols. 17 other advanced species received the message. All chose non-intervention based on logical risk assessment. On Earth, Dr. Min worked late in his laboratory, analyzing unusual patterns in global brain activity. For weeks, the neurologist had been collecting data on the worldwide dream phenomenon. "There's something here," he muttered, staring at his computer screen. The patterns matched no known human brain function, yet they appeared simultaneously in test subjects across continents. "It's like our brains are receiving something we weren't built to understand." At the Global Space Agency headquarters, Director Seo called an emergency meeting. Representatives from every major nation gathered around a circular table, faces grim, with lack of sleep. "The signal is real," she announced, displaying the decoded message on the main screen. "Our deep space arrays detected it 3 weeks ago, but we've only just broken the encoding. It's a distress call from a civilization 27 light-years away." "How can people be dreaming about it?" asked the Russian delegate. Dr. Min, invited as a specialist, stood up. "Humans have always possessed low-level psychic sensitivity. We usually call it intuition or gut feeling. This signal appears designed to trigger emotional responses across species. More advanced races likely receive it as clear communication." "We get nightmares. So what are we hearing exactly?" asked the Chinese representative. Director Seo clicked to the next image, a star system with a destabilizing sun. "The Varian civilization is facing extinction. Their star is collapsing faster than predicted. They have perhaps 6 months before their planet is destroyed." The room fell silent. "What about the Galactic Alliance?" someone finally asked. "Surely the advanced species are responding?" The communications officer looked uncomfortable. "We've detected no rescue missions launching from any known advanced civilization. Our monitoring stations show they received the signal, but they appear to be ignoring it." Outrage spread through the room. Humanity had only recently learned they weren't alone in the universe. The advanced species had kept their distance, calling humans emotionally unpredictable and technologically primitive. Now these same advanced beings were ignoring a dying civilization's pleas. "Then we will go," said Director Seo. The statement hung in the air, both ridiculous and somehow inevitable. "Our ships can barely reach that system," the engineering chief protested, "and we have only 7 vessels capable of such a journey." "Then we build more," said Director Seo. Quickly, what followed was unprecedented in human history. Nations pooled resources. Engineers worked around the clock. The 15 competing space agencies unified under the banner of the United Nations Space Command. Private companies donated technology and materials. The Varian signal grew stronger, more desperate. The dreams intensified. But now they drove humanity forward, rather than keeping them awake in fear. 3 months later, Captain June stood on the bridge of the UNSC Hope, the largest ship ever built by human hands. Behind it floated 19 other vessels of various sizes, crewed by volunteers from every nation. "This is madness," said the Arcturian observer, who had been sent to monitor Earth's development. The small green being shook his head. "Your ships are barely warp-capable. You have no defensive capabilities against cosmic threats. And for what? To save strangers?" Captain June smiled. "That's what humans do." The Arcturian made a sound like static, their version of disbelief. "The Galactic Council calls your species cowardly because you fear the wrong things. You fear loneliness more than death, failure more than risk. Your decisions make no logical sense." "Perhaps not to you," June replied, watching as the final preparations were completed. "But we could never sleep again knowing we heard a cry for help and did nothing." As Operation Helping Hand prepared to launch, messages arrived from several advanced civilizations, warning against interference in natural cosmic processes. The humans listened politely, then continued loading supplies. "All ships report ready, Captain," said First Officer Yuri. Captain June nodded. "Then we go where no one else will." He raised his voice to address all ships. "For the Varians!" The response echoed across 20 vessels. "For the Varians!" The human fleet engaged their engines and disappeared into the darkness of space, carrying hope where logical species had determined none should exist. I'll write part 2 of the story in about 900 words using simple English and Korean names. Here's the continuation in third-person style. Only the cowardly humans answered the call. The darkness of deep space stretched endlessly before the human fleet. 20 ships traveled in tight formation, their engines glowing blue against the black. Inside the lead ship, the UNSC Hope, Captain Dae-ho Kim stood silently on the bridge. "Sir, we're approaching the Centauri debris field," said Navigation Officer Tae-han, his voice tight with concern. He pointed to the scattered pieces of metal floating ahead. "Sensors confirm it's Centaurian technology." Captain Kim leaned forward, studying the broken ship parts rotating slowly in the emptiness. "The Centaurians. Their ships can cross galaxies in days. Their hulls can withstand supernovas." He shook his head. Yet they turned back. The human fleet slowed, carefully navigating through the debris. Pieces of advanced alien metal scraped against their hulls. Some fragments still glowed with strange energy. "They didn't just turn back," said Science Officer Jiwoo. "Something destroyed their ship. The damage patterns suggest they faced the same dangers we're heading toward." 3 weeks had passed since the fleet left Earth. They had already traveled, farther than any human expedition in history. But the journey had proven more dangerous than anyone expected. Yesterday, they had passed through a radiation storm that peeled paint from their hulls and made the crew vomit blood until the medical team found a way to strengthen their shields. Last week, a gravitational anomaly had nearly crushed 2 of their smaller ships. 3 days ago, strange lights appeared inside several vessels, floating through walls and whispering in languages no one understood. In the engine room of the Hope, Chief Engineer Subin Lee hadn't slept in 48 hours. She crawled through narrow passages, fixing systems that weren't designed for this kind of journey. Her hands were burned and cut, but she kept working. "The coolant system is failing again," she told her assistant Minho. "If we don't fix it, the engines will overheat in 10 hours. "We don't have the right parts," Minho said, wiping sweat from his forehead. Subin stared at the problem, then grabbed pieces of equipment they used for something else. "Then we make them fit." On the diplomatic deck, Ambassador Mina Yoon received the incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. The large screen flickered, then showed the face of a Corvellian diplomat. His skin looked like polished silver, with patterns that shifted as he spoke. "Human vessel," the alien said, his voice translated by the computer. "You have entered restricted space. Your primitive ships are not approved for this sector." Ambassador Yoon stood straight, her face calm despite her racing heart. "We're responding to a distress signal from the Varian system." The Corvellian's metallic face showed no emotion. "That matter is being handled by the Council." "Is it?" Mina asked. "Our scans show no other rescue missions. The Varians are dying." Your species is young and doesn't understand the complexities of galactic politics, the alien warned. The variant situation has broader implications. Return to your homeworld. This is not your burden to bear. The bridge crew watched silently. Waiting for Mina's response, she took a deep breath. If not ours, then whose? The Covelian's patterns swirled faster, a sign of frustration. You humans act on emotion rather than logic. It makes you unpredictable and dangerous. The Council has determined that the resources required for Varian rescue exceed acceptable parameters. You mean it's too expensive to save them, Captain Kim cut in. Cost-benefit analysis is a fundamental principle of advanced civilization, the Corvellian replied coldly. When you mature as a species, you will understand. If understanding means leaving people to die, then we choose to remain immature, Mina said, ending the transmission. The next day, the fleet encountered its worst challenge yet. They entered a region where space itself seemed broken. Stars appeared and disappeared. Time moved strangely. On some ships, clocks ran backward. 3 crew members aged 10 years in an hour, while others reported seeing their younger selves walking through walls. We can't continue through this, Communications Officer Yoon said, his voice shaking. Half our systems are failing. Captain Kim studied the readings. According to their maps, the distortion field stretched for light years in every direction. Going around would take months they didn't have. We continue forward, he ordered. Minimum speed, all non-essential personnel to sleep chambers. In the medical bay, Dr. June checked on the growing number of injured crew. Strange radiation burns covered many bodies. Others suffered from time sickness, their cells aging at different rates. We're not built for this journey, June told Captain Kim during his rounds. No human is. Neither were the Centaurians, apparently, Kim replied. Yet someone must reach the Varians. 2 more ships were lost in the distortion field. The Santiago imploded when time inside the engine room ran 1,000 times faster than the rest of the ship. The Cairo disappeared completely, there one moment, gone the next, with all hands aboard. In her tiny cabin, Engineer Su Bin stared at the ceiling during her mandatory rest period. She couldn't sleep. The engines were making a new sound, a high whine that shouldn't be possible. She had fixed everything fixable, rebuilt systems never meant to be rebuilt. Now she just prayed they would hold together. Why are we doing this, Minho had asked her earlier. The advanced species turned back. They know better than us. Subin had no logical answer. She only knew that when she closed her eyes, she still saw the dream images, crystal beings reaching out, begging for help as their world broke apart. 16 days later, with 8 ships remaining, the fleet emerged from the distortion field. Ahead lay normal space, and beyond that, a dying red star. So we've made it through, Captain Kim announced to the exhausted crew. The Varian system is 3 days ahead. No human ship had ever traveled so far. No human had ever seen this part of space. They were alone in the darkness, carrying hope where no one else would go. The signal was stronger now. They no longer needed instruments to detect it. Every human could feel it pulling them forward, a desperate cry across the stars. They had answered the call. Now they just had to survive long enough to help. I'll write part 3 of the story in about 900 words, using simple English and Korean names. Here's the continuation in third-person style. Only the cowardly humans answered the call. The 8 remaining ships of the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Varian system. On the main view screen of the UNSC Hope, Captain Dae-ho Kim and his bridge crew stared in silence at the dying star before them. The red giant pulsed angrily, its outer layers expanding and contracting in violent waves. What had once been the inner planets were now just debris circles, broken into pieces and slowly being pulled into the star's hungry grasp. The star shouldn't have expanded this quickly, Science Officer Ji-woo said, her voice barely above a whisper. Something accelerated. The process. The third planet from the dying sun still held its shape, but massive cracks ran across its surface like spiderwebs on broken glass. What had once been oceans were now dry beds of crystal dust. The atmosphere glowed an unnatural purple. Life. Signs? Captain Kim asked. Medical Officer Jin Kwon hunched over his scanner, adjusting settings to filter out the star's interference. His face brightened, then fell. Life signs detected, he announced. But fading rapidly. I count approximately 3 million individuals, mostly concentrated in underground structures near the equator. Communications officer Yun Song worked frantically at her station, her fingers flying over the controls. Captain, I'm receiving transmissions from the surface. They're using an unusual frequency that interacts directly with neural pathways. That explains the dreams we experienced on Earth. Can you establish contact? Kim asked. I think so, Yun replied. Their language structure is crystalline-based, but our translation algorithms are adapting. The main screen flickered, then showed the image of a being unlike anything the humans had seen before. It appeared to be made entirely of translucent crystal that shifted between blue and purple. Its form was vaguely humanoid, with multiple, thin extensions that might have been arms. Inside its body, light patterns pulsed and swirled. We receive you, the being said, its voice like chimes vibrating in the wind. You came. Captain Kim stepped forward. I am Captain Day-Ho. Kim of Earth, we received your distress signal. The crystalline being's internal lights pulsed rapidly. Earth are not known to us, not major power. Why you come? We heard your call for help, Kim said simply. We couldn't ignore it. Others ignored, the being replied. Our allies, centuries of trade, mutual defense pacts, all calculated rescue as inefficient, abandoned us when Star began destabilizing. Yun Song, still working at her station, looked up with tears in her eyes. Captain, I'm receiving data packets along with the transmission. They're sharing their history. The Varians were once one of the most advanced civilizations in this sector. Their crystal technology powered faster than light travel for dozens of species. They shared their knowledge freely. And they were abandoned, Kim said, his jaw tight. 12. Major powers received our call, the Varian confirmed. All decided cost too great. Logical decision, they said. Few resources to gain from rescue mission. The bridge crew exchanged glances of disbelief. Engineer Subin Lee, called to the bridge for the first contact, couldn't contain her anger. That's monstrous. How could they just... Captain Kim raised, his hand silencing her. He stood straighter, making his decision. Begin evacuation procedures, he ordered. We save everyone we can. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. The human fleet moved into orbit around the Varian world, fighting against the gravitational chaos caused by the dying star. Every available shuttle was pressed into service, making continuous trips to the surface and back. On the planet, the situation was even worse than it had appeared from orbit. The crystalline cities that had once sparkled across the landscape now lay in ruins. Massive quakes shook the ground every few minutes as the planet's core destabilized. The Varians had retreated to deep underground bunkers, the last safe places, on their dying world. Medical officer Jin Kwon faced challenges he'd never imagined. The Varians weren't just shaped like crystals, they were living crystalline structures with completely alien biology. They didn't breathe oxygen or eat food as humans understood it. They absorbed energy directly from specific wavelengths of light. I need to design life support systems that can maintain them on our ships, Jin explained to Captain Kim. It should take months of study and testing to get this right. We have days, Kim replied. Jin nodded. Then we'll do it in days. In the makeshift laboratory on Deck 3, Jin worked alongside the Varian scientists. Language barriers fell away as both species focused on the same goal, survival. The humans' adaptability complemented the Varians' specialized knowledge. Meanwhile, engineer Subin Lee faced her own impossible task. The shuttles were never designed for continuous operation in such extreme conditions. After each trip to the surface, their hulls came back damaged by radiation and gravitational stress. We need to reinforce the shuttle shields, she told her team. Otherwise they'll break apart after a few more trips. Minho looked at their depleted supplies. We don't have enough materials. Subin pointed to non-essential parts of their own ship. Then we use what we have. Strip the recreation. Deck. We don't need exercise equipment if we're all dead. On the surface, First Officer Yuri led the rescue teams. The Varians moved slowly in their crystal forms, each evacuation taking precious time they didn't have. Many refused to leave behind the ancient knowledge crystals that contained their civilization's history. Bring the knowledge too, Yuri ordered his teams. We're not just saving lives, we're saving their culture. As the third day of evacuation began, sensors detected a new problem. The star's instability was increasing exponentially. What should have been a months-long window for rescue was now closing fast. We have less than 24 hours before the planet breaks apart completely, Science Officer Ji-woo reported. Captain Kim looked at the numbers of evacuees so far, barely a quarter of the Varian population. Then we work faster, he said. No one gets left behind. I'll write part 4 of the story in about 900 words using simple English and Korean names. Here's the continuation in third-person style. Only the cowardly humans answered the call, the Byaiji. Evacuation was reaching its peak. Nearly 1,000 Varian refugees now filled the human ships. Shuttle pilots pushed their vessels beyond safe limits, racing against the planet's imminent collapse. Captain Dae-ho Kim hadn't slept in 3 days, surviving on stimulants and determination. Defense Officer Young Park's voice cut through the controlled chaos on the bridge. "Captain, multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel." Young's hands flew across his console. "I count 23 vessels. No, 27. Energy signatures suggest advanced weaponry." He looked up, face pale. "They're not here to help." The main view screen showed the new arrivals, massive warships with sleek, perfect lines. They dwarfed the human vessels. Strange energy fields rippled around their hulls. "Hail them," Kim ordered. Before Communications Officer Yoon could comply, all screens on the bridge flickered. A being appeared, tall and thin with grey skin that seemed to shimmer with embedded technology. Its eyes were large black orbs without pupils, human vessels, the alien said in perfect English. "You are interfering in matters beyond your understanding. Withdraw immediately." Captain Kim stepped forward. "I am Captain Dae-ho Kim of Earth. We are conducting a humanitarian rescue mission." "We are the Collective," the alien replied. "This system falls under our jurisdiction. The fate of the Varians has been decided by galactic consensus." "What consensus?" Ambassador Mina demanded. "To let them die?" The alien's expression didn't change. "The Varian extinction event is necessary for galactic stability. Their rescue would be problematic." Science Officer Ji-woo leaned toward Kim. "Captain, I'm analyzing their fleet formation. They're positioning to block our escape vectors." The Collective spokesperson continued. "The Varian's crystalline biology contains elements crucial for quantum computing development. Their technological potential represents a threat to established galactic order." A Varian elder who had been brought aboard earlier moved forward, its crystal body pulsing with dim light. "You accelerated our star's decay," it said. "This was no natural disaster." The alien didn't deny it. "A regrettable necessity. Your species was advancing too quickly in crystal computing. Projections showed you would surpass collective capabilities within 3 centuries. The truth hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. The advanced species hadn't just abandoned the Varians, they had actively caused their extinction to eliminate future competition. "Monster," Engineer Subin whispered. Captain Kim's face hardened. "Get back to the evacuation," he told his officers quietly. "Double speed, I want every living Varian off that planet." Then louder to the Collective representative, "We reject your consensus. We will continue our mission." The alien's head tilted slightly. "Your primitive species cannot comprehend the complexities of galactic governance. The needs of the many outweigh." Kim cut the transmission. "They're going to attack," he said simply. Young Park looked at his weapons display and laughed without humor. "Our guns are toys compared to theirs. One of their ships could destroy our entire fleet." "Then we don't let them hit us," Kim replied. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships form defensive positions. Protect the evacuation. Shuttles at all costs." He paused, then added, "No Varian dies today." The Collective warships began to move, spreading out in a mathematically perfect pattern designed to trap the human fleet. Their first warning shots flashed past the UNSC Hope, missing by meters, a demonstration of precision. "They're targeting our engines," Young reported. "They want to disable, not destroy us." Kim nodded. "They don't want to be seen as killers, just cold, logical decision-makers." He turned to his helmsman. "Pilot Seo, take us straight at their lead ship." "Sir." The young pilot looked shocked. "Do it," Kim ordered. "All vessels, random evasive patterns. Don't be predictable." What followed would later become legendary in human space. The human ships, hopelessly outmatched in firepower and technology, employed tactics no logical species would consider. While the collective ships moved in precise, calculated patterns, the humans flew like madmen. The UNSC Hope charged directly at the collective flagship, veering away at the last possible second. The Dauntless spun on its axis while firing its meager weapons, creating a chaotic pattern that confused the collective targeting systems. The smaller craft performed maneuvers that strained their structural integrity, moving in ways that made no mathematical sense. "They're adapting," Young warned as a collective beam grazed their hull, melting a section of armor. On the planet below, the evacuation continued. Shuttles darted between laser fire, using the chaos of battle as cover. Varian refugees crowded into cargo holds never designed for passengers. In the engine room, Subin and her team worked frantically as systems overloaded around them. A power surge sent electricity arcing across the ceiling. Minho was thrown back, his arm badly burned. "Get to medical!" Subin shouted. "No time," Minho gritted through the pain. "Shield generators are failing." Subin studied the energy distribution grid, seeing only one impossible option. "We can reroute power from life support to the shields. We'll suffocate." "Not if we time." "Right." Subin's fingers flew across the controls. "We cycle life support, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. It gives the shields extra power during the off cycles." "That's insane," Minho protested. "No one would design a system to work that way." "Exactly why they won't expect it," Subin replied as she made the changes. On the bridge, alarms blared as life support shut down, then restarted half a minute later. "Engineer Lee's buying us time," Captain Kim explained, as the crew gasped for breath. "Use it well." The UNSC Prometheus, second largest in the human fleet, took devastating damage while covering 3 evacuation shuttles. Its captain intentionally drew fire from the collective ships, allowing the shuttles to reach the Dauntless with their precious cargo. "The Prometheus is lost," Young reported grimly. "But they saved 400 Varians." Captain Kim nodded, honoring their sacrifice. "How many more on the planet?" "About 500, Communications Officer Yun reported. "The final evacuation shuttles are loading now." "And the collective?" Young checked his tactical display. "They're regrouping. Their perfect formation is broken. They didn't expect us to fight like this." "No one ever does," Kim said quietly. "Hold position between them and the planet. We need 10 more minutes. I'll write part 5 of the story in about 900 words using simple English and Korean names. Here's the conclusion in third-person style. Only the cowardly humans answered the call. The 5 remaining ships of the human fleet limped away from the dying Varian system, their hulls scarred and broken. Behind them, the red giant star pulsed angrily, consuming the remains of the 3rd planet. The collective warships hovered at the edge of the system, not pursuing. On the bridge of the UNSC Hope, Navigation Officer Tae Han's voice broke the tense silence. "The last transport is away," he reported, his face smudged with soot from a console. "Fire. All shuttles accounted for." Captain Dae-ho Kim nodded, allowing himself to breathe for the first time in hours. He looked around his damaged bridge. Panels hung from the ceiling. Emergency lights flickered. The air smelled of burned plastic and sweat. "Casualties?" he asked quietly. Medical Officer Jin checked his tablet. 27 confirmed dead. 83 injured, he paused. The Prometheus, Intrepid and Dauntless were lost with all hands. The bridge fell silent, honoring the sacrifice. "And the Varians?" Kim asked. "We saved 2.3 million, Communications Officer Yoon said, tears in her eyes. "Almost everyone who was still alive when we arrived." The Varian elder stood nearby, its crystal body pulsing with warm light. "Your people died for strangers," it said. "We cannot understand such sacrifice." "It's what humans do," Kim replied simply. The ship's computer chimed. "Jump engines ready," reported the automated voice. Emergency coordinates set for Sol system. Take us home, Kim ordered. The battered fleet entered faster than light travel, leaving the battle behind. The journey that had taken them months would now take only weeks, thanks to engineer Subin's modifications, desperate changes made during the battle that somehow improved their engines. 3 days into their return journey, something unexpected happened. Communication Officer Yoon sat up straight at her station, adjusting her headset. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions," she said, sounding confused. "Dozens of them, from different species." "The collective?" Yoon shook her head. "No, these are from others, species we've never contacted before." She listened more carefully. "They're offering help, sir. Medical supplies, repair materials, fuel. More messages arrived each hour. Species that humans had never met were reaching out, offering assistance and safe harbor for repairs. They called themselves the non-aligned races, civilizations not. Powerful enough to join the collective, but numerous across the galaxy. They watched what we did," Ambassador Mina realized. "They saw us stand against the collective. A ship from the Trivarians, a furry species with 6 limbs, rendezvoused with the fleet, bringing medical supplies and repair parts. Their captain explained through translators. For too long, the collective has decided who lives and who dies," the alien said. "The smaller species watch in silence, fearing we will be next. But you humans, you showed another way." The journey home became easier with each passing day, as more ships arrived to help. Engineers from 7 different species worked alongside Subin's team, repairing damage that would have been impossible to fix alone. 2 months later, the fleet arrived back at Earth, now accompanied by 32 vessels from 21 different species. News of their return had traveled ahead of them. The entire planet watched as the ships entered orbit. As Captain Kim prepared to descend to Earth for debriefing, the Varian Elder asked to speak with him privately. "You have changed everything," said the Elder, its crystal body glowing with vibrant colors. "For eons we believed advancement meant calculation above compassion. Your species proved otherwise. On Earth, the United Nations had already voted unanimously to offer the Varian sanctuary. Habitats were being prepared on Mars, whose lower gravity and thin atmosphere could be more easily adapted to Varian physiology. Other groups would settle on the exoplanet colonies. In return, the Varians shared their knowledge freely. Their crystalline technology, developed over thousands of years, accelerated Earth's development by centuries within months. New energy sources, advanced computers, medical breakthroughs. 6 months after the return, the collective sent their first official message to Earth. They demanded the Varians be turned over and threatened severe sanctions against humanity. Manthumor. Response came not just from Earth, but from over 60 worlds. Species that had lived in the shadow of the collective for millennia now stood together. They called themselves the Alliance of Free Worlds, with Earth and humanity at its center. 1 year to the day after the rescue fleet had first left Earth, Captain Dae-ho Kim stood beside Ambassador Mina Yoon on the newly constructed Alliance station in Earth orbit. Representatives from nearly 100 species filled the Great Hall. At the front stood the Varian Elders, their crystal bodies now healthy and bright. "We gather today not as conquerors or calculators," Ambassador Mina addressed the assembly, her voice carrying to all corners of the room and to viewers across dozens of worlds. "We come together as equals who recognize that true advancement cannot be measured by technology alone." Kim looked out at the diverse beings before him, some with fur, some with scales, some made of crystal or living metal. 1 year ago, humans had thought themselves alone in the universe. Now they stood at the center of a new galactic community. "The collective called us cowardly because we fear loneliness more than death," Mina continued. "They were right about one thing. We are driven by emotion. But perhaps," she suggested to the assembled representatives, "compassion is not a weakness to overcome, but the greatest strength a species can possess." The applause that followed came in many forms: clapping hands, stomping feet, flashing lights and musical tones, different sounds from different beings, but all with one meaning: hope had a new home in the galaxy. The end.